In the third incident, it's 1 million Turkish liras.
Wow.
So it's good to start with a license. Working with a lawyer is always cheaper than not working with a lawyer. This Airbnb law, this short-term rental law is something new, but before that, or when they want to buy a property and rent it out in short-term contracts, like in Airbnb. And this is the latest hype topic.
Bana bir kez daha ayın kokusu benim küçük bahçemin. Büyüsen de gitsen de hala bekliyor gibi beni uzanmış küçük ellerin.
Hello, this is Welcome Center Bodrum, where we hope to be your #1 resource on anything regarding visiting or living in this beautiful town. Today I'm here with Cihan. He is a lawyer who is specializing in the real estate industry, and he lives here in Bodrum.
Yeah.
How long have you been living here?
Well, I'm from Istanbul. I moved to Bodrum 7 years ago. Here again, working as a lawyer for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and what sort of topics do you work in?
When I was in Istanbul, my expertise was cybercrime. But since I moved to Bodrum, it turned out to be, I became an expert in real estate.
In real estate, yeah.
Because there are lots of issues and conflicts about real estate. The majority of my clients are foreigners, so I help them in buying and selling properties, or when they want to buy a property for investment, either for residence permits or citizenship, or when they want to buy a property and rent it out in short-term contracts, like in Airbnb. And this is the latest hype topic,
Yes.
the Airbnb
and
subject.
in fact, you gave a seminar recently. Is that true in Bodrum?
Yeah, I work with many real estate agents, and not only agents, but also the real estate agencies, the companies. So with many real estate agency companies, I gave seminars so that the real estate agents can help their own clients.
And so the most recent one was on the new Airbnb restrictions. Is that correct?
Yes, we can call it a restriction,
Okay.
but legally we say that's the regulation.
Regulations.
But yeah, for landlords, it's a restriction.
For landlords, it's a restriction. Yes. Okay. So let's get a brief summary of what is going on.
The idea of the law is to regulate short-term rental contracts, but it turned out to be it's kind of support to hotels. So it is like encouraging people to go to hotels instead of making short-term rentals
Okay.
for their holidays. So the landlords, normally everywhere in the world, if you have a house and if you're not using it, especially on high season, if it's by the seaside, if it's in a touristic place, instead of living yourself in that house for the period, you can just rent it out short term for higher prices. So that's what people do generally. But with this new regulation, to keep the standards, the law says you have to get a license, first of all, before the contract. And if you don't have the license on the date of the contract, then you may get a fine of 100,000 Turkish liras.
100,000 Turkish liras.
For the first time. And let's say when you are caught, when you have the fine, when you have the first fine, the authorities say that you have 2 weeks to apply for your license, and then after two weeks, if you don't have the license, then you get a 500,000 liras fine again. It goes like that.
Okay, and so what is this license?
This license is you have to apply on e-Devlet. Many foreigners, foreigners as in who has residence permits, who has the national ID number that starts with 99. If they have this national ID number, then they can apply themselves on e-Devlet. But it has regulations like the property has to have smoke detectors on every room. There has to be plans of every door showing the fire exit. There has to be a fire extinguisher, at least 6 kilograms of dry powder for every 500 square meters. That depends. This is the general information, but in detail, this may differ. So the house has to be, the property has to be clean and tidy and with all the security equipment ready for the guests.
And so I just want to backtrack. If foreign homeowners don't have a residence permit number, how would they apply?
Well, the law is not clear, but in this case, the tax number, when they buy the property, because in the first place, when they're buying the property, they need to have a tax ID. With this tax ID may be applicable, because this is a new law, started in the 1st of January 2024. So we don't have much experience in applications with only tax ID.
Okay.
But what we know, if they have the national ID number, then they are 100% eligible to apply. This doesn't mean that the application will be approved.
Okay. And if they just have a tax number, where would someone like that go? Who would they contact?
Well, it's better if they hire a lawyer with a power of attorney to apply on their behalf, so that the lawyer can follow up the entire process.
Okay, got it. And are they inspecting the properties at any stage?
The properties are inspected, but different than regular system. First, you have to make the application, and then if your papers are correct, then they approve. The system approves your application, and after the approval of the application, within 30 days, the authorities come for inspection. So this is different than regular inspection. Normally, when you make an application, the inspection must be done beforehand, so that if everything's okay, your application must be approved.
So the new regulations are requesting these changes. Are they coming and inspecting the properties to see that they're in code?
Yes, they do and check and make the inspection, but this inspection is different than the regular system, which is they come for inspection after the application is approved, not beforehand. So they check the application on paper. So if everything's fine on paper, then they approve your application, and within 30 days after the approval, they come for inspection. So this is tricky.
And if you are not approved, what happens?
And if you are not approved, then you'll get 100,000 Turkish liras fine.
But that's if they come for the inspection and you're not.
And you are not, if there is anything missing, like one smoke detector or the fire extinguisher, the inspector may issue a fine of 100,000 Turkish liras.
Is this even if it's in operation? What if it's not in operation? Someone's just trying to get it up to code.
Yeah, when you make the application, the law says you as the applicant be sure of what you are applying for, and that your property is clean and eligible for this application. Because to reduce the work for the authorities, what they say, how they do it, is you first make your application and be sure that you have smoke detectors everywhere, and be sure that you have the fire extinguishers and the maps behind the doors, so that they don't need to check. But in the inspection, if they find anything missing, then they can issue a 100,000 liras of fine.
Wow, that seems heavy.
That's heavy.
It seems heavy. And so is this the case for, it's short-term rentals, is that correct? So anything under 3 months?
That's for short-term rentals. That's for 100 days and less.
For 100 days and less. So
Yes.
people can make contracts for 100 days or more,
Yes,
and then they're subject to the previous
code.
code.
That's true. But you can only make 3 contracts in 1 year.
Okay.
If you make a 4th contract, then the law says, yes, dear landlord, you are trying to cheat us, so this is your 100,000 liras fine again
Okay, so you can only rent out short term for 3 times
in a year.
in a year. I'm sorry, for 100 days.
100 and more days. Let's say if you can make a contract for 105 days, but you can only make 3 contracts in a year.
In a year. So you have to divide that year by 3
Yeah.
or rent it out usually like as a yearly contract, I guess.
That's true.
Okay. And in that case, these regulations of smoke detectors, those are not required?
Those are not required.
Those are not required. And are those types of 100-day rentals, are those available on Airbnb?
Well, Airbnb or similar portals or marketplaces,
Yeah.
let's say, they require this license to list, to publish your property on their systems.
So now, is this something that started in January? Does Airbnb require the license?
That's a private company, so each marketplace may have different regulations for that. Some may be expecting it, or some may not be expecting it. That's up to them. So this is not.
Expecting it, you mean some may require it?
Some may require it, some may not be requiring it.
Okay, so there's the new application process, and when does the inspection part of it come in? Do they come and inspect the properties?
Yes, they do come and inspect the properties, and the strange thing is they do the inspection after the approval of the application. Like first you apply, the law says within 30 days the application will be finalized, and if your application is approved, then within 30 days after the approval, the inspector comes and checks your house. Like if you have the fire extinguishers, or if you have the smoke detectors, if you have the maps showing the fire exit.
And if you don't,
And if you don't, you will get a fine of 100,000 Turkish liras.
wow, it's a hefty fine. And so that's also the fine if people are caught renting there.
Exactly. So starting from 1st of February, if you don't have a license, you can't make a short-term rental, which means 100 and less days.
So all rental contracts have to be over 100 days, and you can do that 3 times a year.
That mathematically you can also do it max 3 times.
Max 3 times.
If you have a 4th contract, then it means that somehow, some way you are trying to cheat the system, and the system will again make a fine for you of 100,000 Turkish liras.
And that's just for the first incident, right?
That's for the first incident. If for the second incident, it's 500,000 Turkish liras. In the third incident, it's 1 million Turkish liras.
Wow.
So it's good to start with a license.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
And so, so many of the houses here are in cities, and there's a little bit of a trick when it comes to a house in a city. Is that correct?
Exactly. Like you can make an application easily if you have one property, if you want one block on one parcel.
Like a single standalone house.
Like a single standalone house, you don't need any permit from your neighbors. But if your property is in a complex, then there has to be a general board meeting saying all members approving the properties can be rented out in short term.
Yeah.
So that will be difficult.
That will be difficult.
Yeah.
And so far no licenses have been issued. Is that correct?
That's correct, as this is a new law.
Yeah.
Personally, I've got 5-6 applications ongoing now, and they are all in under progress, so that none of them is either approved or denied. But we got the right papers. We are now waiting for the approval. Once we get the approval, then we will be waiting for the inspector to come to the house.
And so these are foreign clients that you help out through this process?
Majority of my clients are foreigners. I got also Turkish clients, but for foreigners, especially if they are not in Turkey, they issue a power of attorney from any consulate, and then they can send it to me online, digitally. Then I can start the process on their behalf.
And have you been involved in any of these repairs? Like if any of these people needed to actually bring their property up to code? Like who installs the smoke detectors in that case?
Exactly. I also help them, especially if they are abroad, if they are not in Turkey, then they leave a key to their either real estate agent. So I get in contact with the real estate agent. If necessary, I buy the products, the smoke detectors, and together with the real estate or whomever has the key, we go to the property and I make sure that everything is installed correctly so that my client will not get a fine.
Okay, wonderful. Phew.
Yeah, because even there's one smoke detector is missing, then my client may get a fine.
Yeah.
So this is serious.
That's great. Great to know that you're doing this. And then you also help foreigners with just their basic buying properties. Is that correct? Like, especially for residence and citizenship purposes?
Exactly. This Airbnb law, this short-term rental law is something new. But before that, I help foreign clients when they want to make an investment, either to buy a property and rent it out somehow, or if they want to buy a property for residence permit or citizenship. The latest regulation is if you buy a property that is worth 400,000 US dollars, it has details, of course, but if you buy a property of 400,000 US dollars, then you will be eligible for citizenship. That's a different application. Also, the value keeps changing, but latest was 90,000 US dollars. If you buy a property for 90,000 US dollars, equivalent Turkish liras, then you will be eligible for residence permit. That is a member of Capital Markets Board, has to make a report, and that shows the legal value of the property.
Yeah, it's getting complicated, isn't it?
It is complicated. We lawyers are for that.
Yeah.
To make complicated things easier for clients.
And so this has become your life now, living in Bodrum and helping foreigners like
Exactly, this is my
me
business. And I love it.
navigate through the bureaucracy and the changes.
That's what lawyers are for.
Yeah.
Working with a lawyer is always cheaper than not working with a lawyer.
Oh, that's true, especially with these fines and these changes.
Exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, if you want to get in touch with Cihan, we're going to put his contact info there. And thank you so much for
thank you so much.
clarifying this
Thank
issue
you so much.
that,
And this is law, which means all this information is valid for today.
yes.
Tomorrow things may be different. People must check the up-to-date regulations each time when they want to buy a property or when they want to make a contract. We also have to mention this.
It seems like you're really living the nice life here, and I know you have a lot of hobbies just looking around. You're a photographer, you're part of the Bodrum trekking organization, and you're a musician, director of music videos and biographies. But while we're here, I have to ask, would you play us a song?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right,
Thank you.
let's hear Cihan.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, and this is Welcome Center Bodrum, where we hope to be your top resource on all things related to visiting and living in Bodrum.
Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh, partigiano, portami via. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi che passeranno. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E le genti che passeranno e diranno che bel fiore. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore del partigiano. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. La libertà. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Sadece ikimizin uyandığı saatlerde duruyor zaman. Çünkü sadece sen tutuklarsın beni, apansız uyanış gibi. Gel kızım, sokul bana bir kez daha alayım kokusunu, benim küçük bahçemin. Büyüsen de gitsen de hala bekliyor gibi beni uzanmış küçük ellerin. Sadece ikimizin uyandığı saatlerde duruyor zaman. Çünkü sadece sen tutuklarsın beni, apansız uyanış gibi. Gel kızım, sokul bana bir kez daha alayım kokusunu, benim küçük bahçemin. Büyüsen de gitsen de hala bekliyor gibi beni uzanmış küçük ellerin. Gel kızım, sokul bana bir kez daha alayım kokusunu, benim küçük bahçemin. Büyüsen de gitsen de hala bekliyor gibi beni uzanmış küçük ellerin. Çok şükür.
Woo!
Teşekkür ederim.
Ay çok keyifli. Çok sağ olun.
Kapatıyorum.